So if I start streaming now and then you go to your channel,
Yeah, I'm in studio now.
we should probably. Oh, and you uploaded the full stream. Nice. Perfect.
hmm
Yeah, and if you go to home, you'll see a live stream playing right now, which you can click on. Oh, and you uploaded the full stream.
To the
Nice.
dashboard. hmm
You have the studio YouTube studio.youtube.com, yeah, and if you go to home, then you also have you can go to our channel home, and then you'll see like the public sort of link.
Ah, okay, cool,
Yeah.
perfect. Ah,
Um.
yeah, there you go.
Right on. But yeah, this is the welcome to figuring it out with the boys.
Yeah, yeah. Episode 2, let's go. How was your day today, man?
It was decent, other than getting hit by a hurricane. I went on the rocks that were apparently barricaded, but at Peggy's Cove. But there was a ton of people there. There's just trucks like barricading off the. They were barricading off where you could actually drive in the parking lot, but everyone just said fuck that and walked on the rocks and everything. Kind of dumb. Some people were like on the dark rocks, getting hit by waves and shit, but it was
That's
cool.
fucking retarded.
I have a video. They were like literally on the
Crazy,
they
man.
were on the edge and the waves were coming over them and they were running from it. They were really high too. They were smoking a joint and it was cool though.
Um,
How's your day?
Day wasn't bad. Just worked mostly. My sun alarm arrived, which is good because I fucking hate winters here for all the fucking lack of sunlight that you get. And then I got this book arrived, The Madness of Crowds by Douglas Murray. He was on Rogan's podcast the other day, and it's really, really, really good conversation about some of the stuff that we'll probably talk about today. And just thought I'd buy his book, but yeah.
Nice.
Other than that, just been finished off editing the videos this morning. That's about it. So do we want to just get into the first thing?
Yeah, let's go.
So
Let's do it.
looks like they've got basically two choice, or Trump sort of. It seems like he's deciding between two different choices when it comes to the new Supreme Court justice. Yeah.
Yeah. We got Amy
Um,
Coney Barrett and what was the other one's name?
uh, Lagora or something. Where is
Barbara
it?
Lagoa. Yeah.
Yeah, Barbara Lagoa. Now, from what I understand, the uh, Judge Barrett seems to be the more like hardline conservative. Is that
Yeah.
right?
That's what I'm
And
understanding. She's
right,
anti-abortion.
hmm
Has 7 kids, I think.
right,
You know.
very right wing.
Yeah.
And then Lagoa is not real. Like she's more of like a moderate Republican, right?
Yeah, she's moderate Republican, I think. She's also Latino, right?
Right,
And
right, right.
like those are the main things. Those are probably, if you want to simplify, the main things I've heard is that Lagoa's Latino.
From
She's young
Florida.
and a little. She's not as Republican, but she could be a good pick. And then Barrett is obviously the religious, anti-abortion person with a lot of kids. Everyone's saying it's an extreme lifestyle that she wants everyone that. I saw a good tweet today where someone said that someone's like, yeah, they're gonna put in this woman that lives such an extreme lifestyle, and when you really look into it, she just has 7 kids, right?
Yeah,
Which
right.
could be
Did I
extreme,
tell
I
you,
guess, but
did I tell you about the girl I went on a date with recently that had was one of like 15 children?
I think you met like vaguely, very
This
vaguely, but I
this
remember it.
this girl I went on a date with like was one of 15 full-blooded siblings, and then had apparently like some half siblings out there as well. Just seemed like crazy. Just crazy that like the amount of children in such a short period of time that you'll be having there is just like I wouldn't know how to deal with that amount. I wouldn't know how to deal with like one child, let alone 16 of them. But it seemed like from her perspective that, and I could see this being the case, but from her perspective, she was like basically said that she spent most of her like childhood and teenage years just raising her like 8 younger siblings.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hear that a lot from people like that, or from people that are in big
Mm-hmm.
families. Like
Mm-hmm.
my mom was in her. This is way back, but my mom's. dad wasn't a big family, and he was like the oldest, so he raised all of them. He was almost like a father to them, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine. I had two brothers, and we fought all the time. So 15
Well,
siblings.
I had two younger brothers, and I was considerably older than like 8 and 12 years older than them both, and so I sort of had to look after them a lot growing up. But it wasn't like I always enjoyed it. It wasn't necessarily. We fought a lot as well, of course, but it's less fighting when there's such an age difference that
Yeah,
you could really just kill them both. Like,
yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yeah,
so let's get into this article. This is from Free Beacon, right?
yeah. I found interesting on this article that um, one for the Supreme Court, the obvious choice is the likely one as the main title, and then the subtitle is several factors give Amy Coney Barrett an edge, which is
Yeah.
interesting. Uh,
Yeah, I
uh,
found that interesting as well. Like, I don't really know what they mean there because from what I've been reading, Lagoa seems to be the one that they're pretty sure is going to be chosen just because they believe that it's going to 100% win the Florida vote because she's Floridian and she's Latina and
mm.
there's such a like Cuban and Hispanic population in Florida that they seem to love her. Why? Do you know what they're saying are the advantages of Barrett?
um,
The
Not
absence of
really.
outside.
I think that they're mainly talking about, they're talking about how I'm mixing it. There's Lagoa. Who's it? The Barrett? Barrett is the other nominee. Barrett is more hardcore Republican and hardcore, conservative and things like that. But I
It also
haven't.
said she was a Supreme Court finalist before, like so she's I think she's gone through these steps a little bit.
Yeah,
Is what it's saying as well,
she's
but
older too. I think she's older.
hmm,
But like I've seen other articles too that
closer to being
they're
replaced.
they're bashing her too. That Barrett. It's almost like everyone thinks Barrett's gonna get it, and it makes me think that Trump has put that. It makes me think that Trump almost. I don't know. It seems like there's a reason they're all ganging up on Barrett, right?
I just don't understand why you would gang up on either of them. Like, what's the
Yeah.
goal? Like, what's the isn't like if they're not a good candidate, wouldn't you just not vote for them? Like, I don't understand why all the slander sort of comes out about a Supreme Court justice pick, because if if there's a Senate process to like vote these people in, shouldn't like I'm sure that the senators are going to have the information to know what's going on with the person, and there's going to be a hearing, and it's going to be televised. And I
Yeah.
just don't understand what all the slanders for. Like these two professionals who have worked obviously their asses off to get somewhere in their career, regardless of their political leanings. Like have either of them done anything sort of really really wrong, like drink a lot in high school, like Kavanaugh did, or
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Don't know. Maybe they'll have some accusations come out against them from 45
I'm
years ago.
sure they will.
You know?
I'm sure they will. I I also think it was funny when the whole Kavanaugh thing was happening. I remember there was like the Republicans were sort of saying, "Don't do this because you're going to regret it when you're trying to pick a Supreme Court justice." And it's like even if they do that again, if they really do just try and like throw mud at whoever gets the nominee again, it's probably why they're looking at two women so that there can't be any rape allegations actually. Like
Oh my
really.
God, that's an interesting thought. Yeah. Imagine.
I bet it is. I bet they're like, well, neither of these girls can me too anyone, so
Yeah. Yeah. There's no way the Democrats will Me Too a
yeah.
woman.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they
Because
won't
then
even
it's
need
like
to
believe
Joe
all women.
Biden.
If you Me Too a woman, but it's believe all women, then that woman can just defend herself. She never raped anyone, right? Because believe all women.
That's right, exactly. Whatever
Yeah.
she says is the word.
So so it in a really weird way it does give women power because then Republicans will only be able to put up women, so they can't get Me Too'd,
Mhm.
and then women will run, the Republicans. So maybe the
Yeah.
Democrats get what they want. But the other article, the Reuters article, I think is better in terms of Like they're actually bashing Barrett. I
Hey,
confuse the articles, but they're the ones saying that she's like out of A Handmaid's Tale, is it?
and that's what
Like,
I don't understand. Yeah, they're saying like she's from Handmaid's Tale, question mark, U.S. Supreme Court candidates, religious community under scrutiny. And I don't understand this because if we agree that Barrett is the further right option, if you're a mainstream media publication, wouldn't you want the woman of color, moderate judge as the Supreme Court nominee? Like, why would you try and fight with that and have it so that potentially you end up with a more conservative judge? I just don't really understand like why you would go after this person.
no, Barrett's the conservative one. Lagoa's the Latino.
But that's what I'm saying. Like Reuters is a left-wing publication, right? So you would imagine out of Lagoa and Barrett, they would want Lagoa, right?
They're bashing Barrett in here, right?
Oh, are they? Oh,
Yeah,
for some reason I thought that was Lagoa. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, they're
Okay, so
bashing
they're just
Barrett.
bashing. Right.
Which
Oh
there
yeah,
could
here we
be
go.
a
Barrett, my bad.
there could be a strategy behind that where Trump's making it seem like Barrett is the one, because then
Yeah,
the news, the journalists and everything will focus on Barrett, try and dig up
yeah,
everything they can, and then he's like, "Oh, surprise! I got a Latino woman of color
yeah,
over here. We're gonna pick
yeah.
her." And there's gonna be no backlash, or there's gonna be nothing they can dig up right before he actually puts her in. And then when she's in, dig up
But
whatever you want, but she's
also,
in, right?
but how can you even bring anything up on her? Like women of
Yeah,
color can do nothing wrong, right?
women of color,
Like that was what women of color. That's
women
why.
and of color, two
I know,
major things.
exactly. Like holy shit, man! Like she wins the intersectionality Olympics there, and it's this is the strategy that Biden seemed to go with. So if putting women of color into positions as a as a way of defending yourself from potentially being called a racist sexist
Mm.
becomes the new norm, then you're probably just going to expect a lot more of that, right? Like now, there's some people would probably say that that's a good thing. It means that you're going to have more women of color in these positions and things like that. I wonder if it's now just starting to become a thing where would you wonder if you were either of these two women, do you think that you're wondering if at all you're getting offered the job because of your gender at that point?
Yeah, you're still getting, yeah, exactly.
Like
Um,
I don't know, you know what I mean? Like I was talking to my brother recently about he's a performing artist and he was talking a lot about how there were like acting schools that are systemically racist and things like that. And I sort of had a chat with him and said, would you consider yourself to be like an actor of color? And he said yes. And I was like, okay, well, if you're pushing to make these companies or these schools or judges or whatever be more like inclusive, not out of anything of merit, but more out of just things like your skin color. Are you not worried that at some point in your life you're going to wonder if you're even getting jobs because of you actually being a good um, actor, or are you going to be getting them because of the fact that you're mixed race? And he had to think about it for a little while, and he was sort of sitting there at the end going like, I don't, that's actually a good point. Like, I wouldn't want to think that I was just getting roles because of the color of my skin.
yeah,
But it feels like after Biden did that whole I'm electing a woman of color as my VP no matter what thing, or a black woman or whatever, however he phrased it, uh, it just seems like we're pushing more and more towards not picking people on merit, but instead what's in their pants and the color of their skin.
pretty much. I mean, a similar trope is the rich man always worried that the wife is trying to gold dig, right?
Right.
Similar kind of thing. It might have to get to that point. Some people only learn through experiences, so maybe we have to give all these people just roles because of their color, and maybe they'll understand after a while that that's not the perfect thing to do. I was talking to a guy last night actually, and he was saying that and he was arguing with me that systemic racism is my whole point was systemic racism is like, if you have a beard and I tell you to trim it and you trim it as best as you can, but there's still 5 hairs remaining, right? And I just come back
Mhm.
every fucking day and tell you to trim it. Like that's how people are treating systemic racism. Like you can never, the majority is always gonna be. I would wish that there'd be no racism, but the majority is always gonna have some sort of bias to outside influences, right? Until everyone merges into a similar sort of biological
Well,
entity. Um,
it's either. I think the thing is, it's that we either agree. We either agree that people have inherent biases towards their own groups, and and we're just going to agree that that's sort of something that exists, or we believe that that is a social, like something that has been socially engineered into our society, which is what I think the people who are systemic, who believe in systemic racism, seem to be saying, is that it's not just that there's like 3 or 4 hairs left and you've been trying to get rid of it all, but like, you're doing a good job and people are recognizing their biases. What they're saying is that because the people who started the system were racist, that they basically cooked racism into an entire political and corporate system.
mm,
But
I
I
mean,
outside of that, I don't have any proof for it. So you know what I
yeah.
like. It's like I'm trying to defend the point, but I don't have any proof that systemic racism exists. So
I mean, I wouldn't
that's,
I
that's
wouldn't argue against that, but I would argue against someone saying that only because this is where I think it all kind of this is my whole thing. This guy was saying gave an example how in India that women that have lighter skin are seen as better, right?
right.
And it's like saying that for whatever reason, like you said, it's like we don't know why, but as a society we've been ingrained to be racist, right? And so they blame white people. But
Right.
if you took a group of Asian people or black people, say one of those groups were the first groups to control the world,
Yeah.
you can't also argue that it's racist. It's technically racist to say that those groups wouldn't do the same thing because then
Yeah.
you're putting them in a box and saying these people wouldn't be
Yeah. And
racist,
you're saying,
right?
well, that's exactly right. And I think that there's sort of a link that we have later that talks about that exact point. So we might want to come back to like the systemic racism thing. But
True.
with regards to these judges, sort of specifically, I mean, I think that you're probably right. I think that Trump is. From what I was reading around today, it seems like Trump is. It seems like people believe that Trump's going to pick Lagoa eventually, and I think he announced. Do we have the tweet? He announced that
Oh yeah,
on
Saturday.
Saturday he's going to be announcing it, which will be interesting.
That'll be fun. That'll be a good day of news. That'll be good for
Yeah.
Monday. We'll have a lot of stuff to talk about Monday, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right.
Anyways, the
Um,
judges are pretty. I honestly would like Legault to get in, to be honest, because I think it helps Trump out. I think it also is what the left. It's giving the left also something that they want. Helps Trump out because he's putting in a woman of color and giving them a chance, while also, hopefully, Trump is also just looking at it from a who's the better pick, and if Lagoa is a better pick, then it's a win-win for everybody if it's done correctly.
100%. Do we have any of the links in here about like AOC regarding Ruth Bader Ginsburg's last wish?
Um,
Because I think that's actually a really not necessarily important. I don't think that.
oh, I remember you. Let me see if I can get those links. It might be in the WhatsApp.
Yeah, because she basically said that because RGB or RBG, whatever the fuck her name, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, was in her last words saying that she wanted the Supreme Court nomination to wait until the next election, that should somehow supersede the Constitution. Which I don't know, but
The
it'd be interesting.
filibuster one that's not the one you're talking about, eh?
There's like a clip. There's a couple of clips. There's the if you It should be with the Hodge twins.
I might have missed. I think I might have missed a. I might have went far enough back.
Let me find it for you. Mm.
Yeah, I know I missed the. No, I got those. I see the hill. Yeah, I've got it up, I think. This is a man who does not care about a dying woman's final wish.
Yeah.
The video.
Yeah, the video.
I need you to be ready. And I need you to
man,
be
the way she
ready to
talks.
be responsive.
It's so fucking condescending,
And
man.
by
It's
that,
brutal.
I mean,
It's honestly brutal to watch.
we don't
And it's
quite know
also crazy
what
to
the
see
next
someone
play is
who
in terms
like
of this
ran as a
issue on the
progressive
Supreme
fucking candidate just really bend over for the establishment and basically voter shame everyone into voting for Joe Biden, even though he's not going to help any progressive cause whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, you are such a fucking tool of the establishment at this point.
Yep.
Have you got the video up?
She nominated. Yeah, I was playing it in the background. She nominated Bernie Sanders
Court, right?
symbolically.
Mitch
even though I
McConnell sent
guess
out a
it was,
statement
like,
tonight.
before Joe Biden was
and
officially the nominee.
As I said at the opening,
I mean,
Okay, do you want
the
to play it
very
again and
last
I'll shut up?
dying I need you to be ready. I need you to be ready. And I need you to be ready to be responsive. And by that, I mean, we don't quite know what the next play is in terms of this issue on the Supreme Court, right? Mitch McConnell sent out a statement tonight. And as I said at the opening, the very last dying wish of RBG was that her vacancy not be filled until the new president takes office in January. That was her dying wish. Tonight, Mitch McConnell publicly, the night of her passing, he couldn't wait 24 hours, issued a statement saying that he was going to give Trump a vote in violation of her dying wish. People can say how appalling, people could say this is horrible, etc. But we know who this man is. We know who this man is. This is a man who does not care about a dying woman's final wish. Clearly.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Kid, that's so ridiculous.
It's crazy. Like, I need you to be ready. I need you to be ready. I need you to and like I saw another video where she's like saying I need you to radicalize. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about?
And
she's like,
imagine, like my last wish was for fucking, anybody could give their last wish. It doesn't mean it's granted. It doesn't matter if you're like Supreme Court justice or not.
it doesn't matter if you're a saint, man. Like, look, she's a lovely, like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a lovely person,
Yeah.
Thank you for doing such a great job for such a long time. We're all very, very appreciative. But you know the law better than almost anyone. You know that we can't just rip up the Constitution just because you have a dying wish.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not the way the fucking country works.
Which is
And
Trump you heard about how Trump said that he look, this is distasteful. I will agree that this is distasteful, but he did make a point where he was like, I suspect that may not even be true, that she may not have even said that. And your point there, which is that she is a judge. She knows how the law works.
Well, that's right. Would she ever ask to do something
Exactly.
unconstitutional with her last breath?
Yeah.
And, like, I'm sure that she has a ton of better things to be saying with her last breath, probably to the people she loves, than fuck Trump, basically.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't... Look, honestly, I was about to say I don't want to say that anyone will be lying about that, but I don't think that that's any sort of insult to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it, great, you said it. I don't, it's not taking anything away from her. But at this point, I don't trust AOC at all. I don't trust Nancy Pelosi at all. I don't trust any of the Dems that would say that this is true. Just like if Brett Kavanaugh died tomorrow and Trump came out and said, oh, and Brett with his last final wish said, I want Trump to have unlimited terms forever. I would be like, well, maybe he did say it, but it still doesn't fucking matter. Like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Which is the point, right? Like,
yeah. And I would question, did he really say that, or is that Trump?
Yeah, did he say that? I'd be like, man, like
Trump
that seems like a lie. Yeah, exactly. And this seems like something that the Dems would say. It's an emotional argument that is not logical. Yeah. That very much seems like a leftist sort of talking point.
Yeah, that is a good point.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they're not using the death of this fucking woman to pretend and grandstand and try and rob half the country of the Supreme Court justice that they would like to see appointed.
Yeah.
Right? Because the thing is, it's like if you're a Democrat, I can obviously understand why you want it to why you want it to wait until the election. But if you're a Republican, you don't. So why should you ask the Republicans to wait when you were so upset that you had to wait when you didn't have the power to actually put someone in 4 years ago?
And again, it comes back to the same point as the do you really want to be in a position because of your skin color, right? Do we really want to appoint judges because of, emotions? No.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And it's just not the way the country's meant to be run. Like, it's not. Once again, that's not how it works.
Yeah. Is there any other links, by the way, that are related to that? I think it's. Yeah,
there was like a. I just read something. They said something really funny about that, actually. There was the tweet that you had from. Yeah. Oh, did you see that tweet from the Daily Brief? That guy. It's like Thomas Duryea 5. You've got some text next to it. Reply basically confirming why I think Trump will never pick her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let me pull that up.
Yeah. This guy goes, my appeal to voters, vote for Biden if for no other reason than so we never have to see Trump's ugly face again or listen to his ego and hatred spews lies, foul language, ... You get it. I don't really get it. You're sort of just sounding like a Trump hater. Like, you're not... Like, okay, you said that he lied. Like, you said, well, that's... You sound like an angry person, right? The Brief is a proud member of the Trump 2020 enemy list of internet politicians.
Where's the Daily Brief? Let's see who this guy is. Served in the intelligence community in Washington, D.C. Family man, vet, lifelong Democrat. Love God and country for sound, sane commentary. For sound, sane commentary, follow the Brief. We should podcast with this guy.
We should. For sound, sane commentary. Like, vote for Biden because Trump is ugly and mean and he says bad words sometimes. Yeah, cool.
He says, after years of effort by the Republican Party to dumb down America, nowhere else is it more evident than on Twitter. The responses I get from the right are incoherent, factually wrong, hateful, and written on a 5th grade level. It's so sad they have to stoop so low to get votes. Let's just back up again here. What was that tweet? What did that say again? Oh, yeah. Vote for Biden if for no other reason than so we never have to see Trump's ugly face again. Like, okay.
This is the thing. Like, it's like I feel like a lot of the time, and this is, I think, one of my big problems with the left at the moment, is that they're just projecting. Like, you're projecting your own flaws. You're saying that other people don't make good sentences. You're saying that other people make arguments with no evidence or anything like that. But you basically just spew out hate.
Yeah.
And why would I want to, like, why would I agree with you if you're such a hateful person? Like, I don't agree with anyone that's that hateful.
Yeah. It's not.
You know,
It's
like, I'm a loving I want everyone to get along. I
yeah.
don't want anyone to be angry with one another. And I don't think that saying someone's ugly and has an ego and is, says foul words is a good enough reason to say that you need to vote for the other person. And
Yes.
I don't think that when AOC says that she's going to vote for Biden no matter what, I think that's fucking terrible. I think that's really like such a terrible thing to say, because the only power that you have as a voter is your vote, right? And if the person knows that you're going to vote for them, why would they ever try to help you? They know that they've got your vote. They're going to try and help the people whose votes they don't have. So when you ran as a progressive AOC, and you've got all of these progressive fans and people who look up to you, and you're telling them all to vote for Biden, even though he's not going to give you health care, he's not going to help with the Green New Deal, he's not going to help with lower cost of education, he's not going to help with any of these things. You're really just screwing progressives, and it just feels like so gross. Like all of
Yeah.
this just feels gross. Like this Daily Brief guy and people like AOC, in the way that they talk to voters, it's just so condescending.
It is,
Like,
and two points to what you said. The first thing you said was that, like, I think to further on that point, we both agree on the fact that you don't vote for another party just because you hate the other party. And secondly,
hmm,
um, again, if you're the Democrats, we mentioned this before, but the Democrats are using hate against, and I'll say it, Trump can be hateful at times. He can say some pretty nasty but funny stuff, And if the Dems hate that about Trump, you can't use that against him. You know what I mean? Like you should not use that against him if you
yeah,
hate it, right?
yeah,
Because it just gives him more power over you too. Because you're saying, look, what you're doing is actually working against us, so we're gonna have to do it to you. So I don't care if you're a Democrat and you want to use hate. If you want to say Trump is an orange man, he's got small hands, whatever, blah blah blah, do it. But don't also act like you're some sort of savior for the Democratic Party by saying I'm the best person. I it's love, peace, everything, and then you hate on Trump. You can't do it. You got to pick a side,
100%.
right?
A
The other thing
hundred.
is that with the Biden, your point on Biden being voted in because just because they hate the other side, that's how a lot of dictatorships kind of get in place, right? Like you look at Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood was, arguably a bad thing. Like we won't get into that whole whether it was good or bad. And then they now have El Sisi, who is pretty much a dictator. Trump actually said he went up to El Sisi. You ever heard of that? Where he met the guy and said, "Who? There's my." He said like, "There's my favorite dictator," to his face,
No, I
even though he's
haven't.
not technically a dictator.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but they
That's
voted him in
hilarious.
thinking he was better, right? And it turns
Mhm.
out that no, you can't just vote in someone random because he's also very corrupt. So yeah,
Yeah.
valid points.
So I just sent you a link on Facebook. Uh, I'd be interested for you to bring that up and play it, because I think it really sort of underscores my point as to why AOC should not be saying this type of stuff to a voting base.
Let's see if I can get it here.
If you want to pull the party, the major party that is closest to the way you're thinking, to what you're thinking, you must show them that you're capable of not voting for them.
Because the way the Democratic Party is run now for quite a number of presidential cycles is they pick a nominee in a kind of half-assed process that doesn't really represent much of anybody. And then they tell everybody to just shut up. Don't bring up anything that will complicate life for your nominee. You know he's not for you on this. Why badger him? He's not going to be for you for reasons that you don't understand but are good reasons. Shut up. Turn off your brains.
If you don't show them you're capable of not voting for them, they don't have to listen to you. I promise you that. I worked within the Democratic Party. I didn't listen or have to listen to anything on the left while I was working in the Democratic Party, because the left had nowhere to go.
Wow. That's interesting how you put. Yeah. That's a good video. I like that video.
If you want,
I think that it's hilarious that he is a mainstream media left-wing journalist now and would never, ever, 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 ever say any of those things again.
Really?
But-
He's back in the he's back on the dark side?
Well, he's not a
2006
politician.
documentary about.
Well, he's not a politician anymore. He's just a journalist now. So now it's like when you're a left-wing journalist, it's like, once again, you have to say all the left-wing things. But his point in that video is spot on. And it's exactly why AOC should not be saying that to people. Because you're essentially telling your voters, or you're telling Joe Biden, you don't need to give a fuck about progressives. You don't need to give a shit about about any of the stuff that we care about, because we have nowhere to go. We're not going to vote for Trump.
Yep.
And we're definitely going to vote for Biden. We're, vote blue no matter who, and all that bullshit that comes out. And this is why I personally believe that Trump's going to win again, is because the progressives aren't going to turn up for Joe Biden. No matter how much AOC shames them into doing it, they're never going to be like, oh yeah, let's go for the corporatist, warmongering, jail building, crime bill writing, fucking Joe Biden, dementia-addled, fucking I don't see a progressive that actually cares about progressive things. Rather, fake progressives will vote for Joe Biden, but I don't think any real progressive will.
Yeah, and if they do, like you said, they're not going to get what. They'll just be just.
They're not going to get what they want. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's just kicking the rock. That's just kicking the stone down the street. Like, you're gonna have a backlash to that. Let's say Biden gets in, and he's in for 4, 8 years, whatever, and maybe dies, and Kamala Harris becomes the president. And if people don't like that, you're gonna get another Trump, maybe an even worse Trump, and it
way worse,
you know,
way worse. Well, this is for me one of the big reasons why I actually think that Trump is I don't like either of the candidates. If I was American, I would be voting for Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate. But with that being said, if I only had the options of Biden or Trump, I actually think that Trump is the lesser of two evils when you play this thing out over a long term. Because if you go back to the norm, if you go back to the status quo, that was exactly why Trump got elected. People were so upset at the class-based system that had happened, where they were just getting fucked, where they'd been kicked out of their homes while the banks all got huge bailouts, when Obamacare did nothing to help these people. The Flint fucking water crisis is ridiculous. There's just constant bad things happening for poor people. There are tons of disenfranchised voters, and then when some charismatic guy comes along and basically says, hey, fuck all these politicians, I've got the answer, people are desperate and they want to go with him. And so what happens when a more charismatic, more intelligent, more evil person tries to then do the same thing in 10 or 20 years after Biden gets elected and everything goes back to the way it was? Because it wasn't good. It wasn't good 10 years ago. It wasn't good it's not good now. Being poor in America is a fucking terrible circumstance to be in. It's not good.
10 years ago, 12 years ago, we had that whole financial crisis, which was arguably Bill Clinton had some involvement in that. So no, it's not. No party's ever been. Basically all the party. You could have a much better party in this day and age than any of the parties that have ever existed. And all you've got to do is have the people do some critical thinking, research your stuff, and don't let yourself be shamed. That's it. Don't be shamed into voting.
Don't be shamed into voting for someone, and go out and vote for the person that best represents your ideals. And that might mean not voting for either of the two major parties. It probably does mean not voting for two of the major parties. Unless you're a huge corporation, voting for either of the two major parties is not really a good idea.
Yeah.
The problem is that these, and I think I sent you a clip on this, you might be able to bring it up, it was from Spike Cohen. It's one of the later ones that I sent you. But the problem is that these other parties, the People's Party, the Greens Party, the Libertarians, they're not allowed to speak on the debate stage. We're about to see 4 debates of Trump and Biden with no other parties on stage. The VPs, once again, there's going to be no other parties on stage. It's ridiculous. If that happened in Canada, we would all go crazy. Like, I love seeing Bloc Quebec on the debate stage because they're crazy people. Like, they're super hardline right-wing people that I don't understand or agree with at all, but I like seeing their representation up there. I also love seeing the Greens on the debate stage in Canada.
So Spike Cohen is Joe Jorgensen's vice
VP, yeah.
vice president. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Joe
And
Jorgensen and I on the ballot in all 50 states. They didn't receive 15% and yeah. So
yeah, they
he's
didn't
saying-
they didn't allow for polls and then told them that they didn't qualify for the polls.
That's
and then-
pretty upsetting.
And
Like-
I'm sure that if you do a real quick Google search as well, you can find some articles talking about how the Democrats just got the Greens off a bunch of ballots in the swing states. So literally suppressing votes because they don't want people to vote Greens. They want them to vote Democrat instead, and they don't want to lose any votes to the Greens party. But what you're doing there is
'cause
you're...
of Jill Stein.
Right.
I forgot about that. Jill Stein was. I remember that. That was funny. When she took votes away. They're saying that some of the topics include Trump and Biden records, the Supreme Court, COVID-19, the economy, race and violence. Fuck, that makes me laugh. Integrity of the election, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, decent
It'll be-
topics, I guess.
So, let me find that link.
Should be in the Google Doc there.
Yeah, is it?
It's
Where
actually
is it?
the second one. Once you get past all the replies, I separated topics by like 4 or 3 ellipses or hyphens, and
Yeah.
it is. I'll just send you the link.
Oh, I think I. Oh yeah. Sorry, no, yeah. Send me the link because I'm not seeing it.
Messenger or what? Yeah, send it on Messenger. I'm
So
excited for them though. When is that? That's next Tuesday. Is the debate, eh?
yeah, that's right. I think so. The 29th or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so a week from now. And yeah, those topics are gonna be interesting. So the Trump and Biden records. I mean, I don't know. So I think this would actually be interesting to sort of go through these one by one and like sort of what we think the pros and cons are to both people.
Okay.
By the records, I think they mean like their policy records, right?
Sometimes.
Well, get
the Trump and Biden records. Well, do you think
Yeah,
they're also
so-
going to bring up like tax records and stuff like that?
I think so. I think that they'll. Well, I mean, this one's going to be on Fox News, so probably not. But I think that Biden will probably bring up that Trump hasn't shown his tax records. Now, that's actually an interesting thing. Do you think that people care about that?
Trump and Biden, the tax records?
No. Yeah. Well, Trump's tax records in particular, because personally, for a very long time, was always saying like, why hasn't he shown his tax returns? What's he hiding? All that type of stuff. I still think that it's weird that he never showed them, just seeing as every other president has. And I think that I'm sure that he probably is hiding some shit as a
Well, that's the thing.
billionaire businessman.
I think that like my uncle's an accountant and he owns a company. Basically, so I didn't know as much either. I didn't know why in the beginning, and now that I've learned a lot more about accounting just through my uncle and what he can do, and like they're accountants, if they really do a lot of work, like they are powerful people, man. The
Oh,
amount
yeah.
of loopholes and the amount of things you can write off and the amount of it's crazy. And I'm sure Trump probably has such complicated tax records that if you released it to the public, they'd all just look at the numbers and be like, oh, negative $40 million. That means you didn't pay $40 million to the, you know what I mean? Like they wouldn't.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so complicated that Trump doesn't want to release them because he knows that the public is just going to take random ass numbers and be like, oh, this proves that he didn't pay taxes, or this proves that he did this or that.
And I
You
think
know?
that the other, well, that's a very good point, is that even if the public sort of doesn't make their own mind up like that about it, you know for sure Rachel Maddow is going to fucking get on MSNBC the very next day and just scream for 12 hours about how the Russians have been paying Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is a company that once had a Russian client. That must be where fucking Putin was making all of his deposits.
Yeah.
Like, it's so I agree with you in the sense that he probably wouldn't want to show it for that reason. But I do also believe that does give credence to the left when they say, what's he hiding? Like, I think you sort of like, you can do it one of two ways. You can hide them and just say, fuck off, which is what he's doing, which, you know, if he gets elected, it doesn't matter, right? Like, if he gets elected, then what it says is people don't care. If the other sort of option that he has is to come out and just show them and basically tell people, look, I have nothing to hide, and watch, the fake news is once again going to turn this into a fucking mountain. That once again they're going to turn this into a big thing. But I don't think I think that him not showing them is probably the better strategy, because I think he probably does have things that are a bit shady on there. If he goes through and shows his last 10 to 20 years of tax returns, like, and I don't give a shit if he was a shady businessman at this point anymore. I really don't care.
Well,
like,
that's
it's
the thing
not.
is that if you're not, that's the other thing that I've learned, is that you basically won't survive unless you're finding every loophole and every way to save as much money as possible. Because if you don't, that's just how the system works right now, is that if you don't, someone else will, and they'll beat you out. It's all
Yes,
money.
I agree. And I also would say that
and that's why the voters, I think that's why a substantial amount of voters don't care, because they also understand that, right?
Yes, I agree.
To
And then
some
I
degree.
also think that, to your point earlier, like, as you said, he could be looking for loopholes that the accountant has found for him that are technically legal loopholes, but in the wrong context or whatever could look really dirty or shady, especially if being framed by someone like Rachel Maddow. And then the average voter, even someone like myself, right? If I was trying to look through Trump's tax returns, I'm not going to understand them properly. I'm not a fucking accountant. So I would get confused. And if I'm taking Rachel Maddow's word for it, which a lot of people do, then I'm probably going to get fed some wrong information that leads me down another Russia witch hunt.
Yep.
You know?
Yes.
And it's just not...
Or there's maybe things he did that were legal one year and the next year were illegal, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And we won't know, but then it'll get framed as like, look, he did this illegal thing, but then if you actually get the full story, you might find out that at the time it was completely fine.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're saying? Like, yeah, I totally agree. And those are all points as to why he is smart for potentially not showing his tax returns, but it does take away the sort of, I guess, the integrity it takes away from his integrity.
Yep.
Right? Like, even though it's probably a better strategic decision for him, the left is going to paint that as he doesn't have integrity.
Yep. He's smart. So I was trying to type the timestamp there, but so just cut that out. But I'm sure we'll have a fair amount of cuts in this stream, or in the clips. But yeah, I 100% agree. I have no other counter, no other points.
No, I think that it's smart if he holds it back, but I think the left will obviously try and say that he lacks integrity for that. So then the next thing is the Supreme Court, which we've talked quite a bit about. COVID-19. That is going to be a fucking interesting topic for these two to talk about, because the left has been saying for a very, 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 very long time that Trump is responsible for these 200,000 deaths, right? They've been saying that since basically day one. All of these deaths are under Trump's America. They blah, 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 like he's responsible for all of this. But at this point, whenever I have a conversation with anyone about what Trump actually could have done better, no one has any answers for me other than his rhetoric, which to me is sort of a slimy way to deal with that conversation. Because what you're telling me is that policy-wise, which is his job, everything that he did, he locked down the country at the same time as Australia from China. He was the first country to lock down from Europe at the end of January, while Democrats were out constantly saying that it was fine to be out, and you didn't need to wear masks, and to come to Chinatown and to do whatever, right? Like, and and then he shut down one of the largest economies in the world in March, long before there were really any deaths in America. And I don't, and he made a really good point, and I think that he'll make the same point when he gets pressed on it in the debates, which is, what am I meant to do? Shut down the biggest country in the world when we have 0 cases? Like, that's suicide. That's just economic suicide. And I'd be very interested to see if Biden can even paint him into an area in which he's bad, other than just looking at the death count.
Well, that's the
Other
thing.
than
Do you
just
think
looking at the
Biden?
death.
That's the whole thing about this too. Do you think Biden's gonna respond? How is he gonna respond to this stuff?
Well, that's the thing. But I don't know if Trump can make the point that I've seen Trump get pushed on these points, and he doesn't make the point very
True.
well, unfortunately. He's
I
not
agree.
good at responding to these things. Like that Axiom interview that he had
Yeah.
he responded terribly.
That was a train wreck. That was actually probably the worst interview I've ever seen him do.
Yeah,
That was-
I agree.
That was a train wreck.
And
of
so-
a-
So I could see the COVID one going potentially bad for Trump, especially once they get to like the left-wing news organizations. Holy shit, there was a video. I'm going to send you, maybe I sent it to you. The press secretary talking with Jim Acosta from CNN.
I'm gonna interject just before we move to that.
Yeah.
Look on the stream,
Mhm.
and I want something interesting. I forgot to tell you about this yesterday, but I was looking in. Saw a guy from Mexico, and I just put in Mexico coronavirus to get the first link that would tell me how many deaths were in Mexico at the moment. So, if you type in any country and then coronavirus, Google comes up with this little graphic, right? That kind of shows you how many cases they had.
Mhm.
And what you don't realize, like I thought those were deaths at first, and then I was an idiot. I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. It's cases. They leave deaths at the bottom, and when you look at deaths, it paints a much different picture than cases, right? They show cases first, which I think cases are not as important as deaths, because when you see the deaths, you see a huge sort of surge, and then they started shutting down, opened up slowly again with precautions, and now the deaths are like, I guess, almost half of the peak. You know, so the deaths, and you look at any of these places. You look at UK, they're climbing back up with cases. So it's like, oh my God, UK, you've got to shut down again. You go to
Yeah.
You go to deaths. Look at that. Look at the deaths in the UK.
And that's, I
Like-
don't know. What's that?
This is
Oh,
the
that's
source is
definitely-
Wikipedia. So I would say it has to be somewhat accurate, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say so. I would imagine that it's just pulling from something like Worldometers or something like that. But I don't know what, like, the problem that I see is that, okay, if Americans are very America-centric, and I get that, but it's like when you look at America and you look at all the other countries and you look at the death per capita and you look at the death rate of people who get COVID to dying, and like if you look at any of these things, they're really not that bad. Like yes, they do. It seems like they probably have the highest death toll, but I don't know how they're reporting any of that shit. Like I don't understand. I don't understand every country's operation well enough. But when I even look at the numbers that seem to be like, if we agree that the numbers that are out there are as real as possible, right?
Well, that's what they
I still
want.
don't
That's
think
the whole-
America looks that bad.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, let's even say that they are. Let's say the numbers are all exactly right,
Yeah.
because that's what the left
Yeah.
wants you to
Yeah.
think. You go to
Right.
Canada, right now we had 11 deaths yesterday, right? Like we're dying. Like look at that. You don't even have to worry about it at this. Well,
Like,
I get
look
why-
at that. What is
Yeah.
that? That's crazy.
yeah, this is Canada, you know. And again, you go back to the United States, like you don't have to really worry about it. Like you just have. You have to worry about it, but you go to the deaths and you kind of are like, okay, the deaths are slowly going down again. They only rose up a little bit when we opened up and we kind of took some precautions. And it's not a terrible amount of deaths happening in the States because of coronavirus when you realize that 300 people may have died, but there's 330 million or however many million people in the United States that
Yeah.
are living every day. Although I am proud of Canada. Canada's looks much better than that even.
But
Yeah,
why
this
do you
is
think
crazy.
that is? Because I mean, like, look, Vancouver's open as fuck, man. Like, Vancouver's so open, and I know that Halifax has been sort of closed, but I don't understand where.
You know that video you sent me of Australia where they're where they're arresting the woman for the anti-mask
Yeah,
protest?
yeah,
You
yeah,
see
yeah.
the deaths on here?
What are those numbers saying?
These are the total. So these numbers are saying the total deaths per day. So
Yeah.
Australia had a maximum of like 59 deaths in September 4th, and May to June had basically 0 per day. And they're arresting pregnant women that don't want to wear masks because a total of maybe 300 people died. I don't know. Like this, is this accurate? Like is
I would say so. I can't imagine it not being accurate, but this is the. I think that their argument would be, well, it's only 300 deaths because we're taking such extreme measures, right?
I get yeah. But you're also an
But-
island that you can just shut down if you only have. Yeah, I
But
see
it's
the
also just-
argument, but
I see the argument, but I also just think it's a short-sighted argument because I think that what you're saying is we're prioritizing a certain set of the population over everybody else because yeah, you might have saved some lives, but you've also ruined a ton. You've ruined a ton of lives.
oh yeah.
I'm talking to business owners
Businesses.
every single day. I talk for anyone who watches this in the future, I sell marketing services for a living, and I talk to small businesses all over Canada, and I used to talk to small businesses all over North America and all over the world constantly. They're not happy. They're very upset. They've lost everything. They're and people might not care about these types of places, but like bowling alleys, theaters, bars, hotels, restaurants, music schools, dance schools, gyms, all of these places are fucked.
Yeah.
And it's all well and good to say, yeah, okay, we saved a bunch of lives, but you're also killing people and ruining them and their families' lives in the process by taking these actions. I don't know where I'm not a politician for any of these countries, and I'm not an economist, so I don't know how the scale balances out. But I feel like we're looking at this quite short-sighted and not really taking into account the actual long-term implications of shutting down an economy.
Yeah. There's a ton of them. like you said,
Yeah.
you have. Imagine your family. Imagine your dad. Well, my dad. So, my dad. I actually haven't thought about this yet. But my dad passed away when I was younger. But he ran a small garage in the city, and that was what put food on the table. Right. That's the main
Right.
source of income for us. And
Yeah.
thinking right now, if he was alive, and he was working that business, he'd be screwed. Like they shut
be
down a
fucked.
street. They shut down a street to repave it for a month or two, like years beforehand, and he lost a ton of money. Right?
Mhm.
If COVID, people aren't going to be fixing their cars when they're tight on money, and yeah, that would suck. Like
Yeah.
we'd be going into credit card debt, and it's great. It's yeah.
That's
There's not much
exactly
else to
right.
say on it.
But that is exactly what happens. Is that you're going to. So I think the question then is once again if they bring up COVID, the point towards Biden's point I'm sure will be Trump, you've killed 200,000 people, and I think Trump's response would be, could you imagine how much Joe Biden would have fucked up the economy if he was given the ability to do whatever he wanted? Right? That's probably going to be their argument, which is interesting because the next topic that Chris Wallace is going to talk to them about is going to be the economy. Now, before COVID actually happened, I was pretty certain that Trump was going to win just because the economy was so good. And when he was going up against Biden and Sanders, I've just always thought that Biden was a super weak candidate, and Sanders runs on a whole platform of revolutionizing the economy, and I don't think that people are ever going to revolutionize the economy when the economy is doing so well, right?
Mhm.
But I do think that people remember the economy in America being good recently. And I think that some people, I don't even personally give Trump that much credit for it, honestly. I really don't. I think that there were things that he did well in terms of giving short-term gains to the economy, like the big tax cuts that he did, and I think that he was riding off of a growing economy that Obama had created after the financial crisis, and so I think that it was just sort of going that way anyway.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are going to associate that with Trump, and I don't know if they're right or wrong. I see it differently, but it's, you know, I can understand where they're coming from. And I think when it comes to the economy, people are going to I think people are going to have more faith in Trump than Biden. Would you agree?
Yeah, I've seen even liberals and Democrats, they sort of say they'll give him the economic part. So 100%,
Right.
I think that one's almost a given that, you know, Trump, and you have a good point though. Trump really, the trajectory may have been, I don't know the exact numbers, it may have been 2% a year increase in GDP or something, and maybe Trump increased it to 2.5%. Not like he did a huge amount for the economy, but he hyped it up. So he's definitely
Well-
remembered for this stuff. And he did do good things with the tariffs, and he did do good things with, you know, creating more jobs and stuff. But like you said, a lot of that was already in place for him to just build on.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point, but I think that also on top of that, he has some good stats with him.
Yeah.
Like especially about black unemployment, black household income, average household income, total unemployment, all of those different things. He actually has some really good stats where, sort of regardless of whether or not people want to give him the credit for it, even, I think that he's just going to dominate that part of the debate.
He's a businessman. Like,
Yeah.
he's a businessman.
That's right. That's the part of the debate that he's best suited for sure. The next part is interesting because once again it comes to the race and violence part, and I was just sort of saying that probably the best point that Trump has about this whole thing, which is all the stuff that he's done for black people. But do you want to go into sort of what you see happening with the race and violence aspect between these two? Give me one quick second.
I mean, obviously obviously Biden is gonna go into, you know, Biden's gonna at least if he doesn't just outright call Trump a racist, he's gonna very much imply that Trump is a racist. Trump has caused the violent. Trump has caused any of the riots that happened were Trump's fault. And you know, if our peaceful protests on the Democrat side got violent,
Got
Proud
violent.
Boys came in, that guy shot up someone's bicep. You know, it's all Trump's fault. And I don't know. I guess I can't actually. I'm not sure. You're good at you kind of know what Trump would respond with. I can't really imagine. I'm assuming he'd respond with, you know, you're the reason that they were caused. We came in, but he's gonna come off with a zinger. I know he's got a zinger in there. You know?
Well, if he's smart, he will bring up the crime bill. Like if Trump is smart, he's going to bring up the crime bill. Do we want to go over the crime bill real quick and just look at what was basically in it?
Yeah, let's do it. Joe, do you know what year it was or what's it called?
Just type in Joe Biden's crime bill.
1994, yeah. First result. The controversial 99. Now, do I want to read Vox? No, I'm not even giving you the chance.
No,
you know?
I wouldn't even
I'm
read.
not clicking
I wouldn't
you.
read Vox. I would
Let's
just
do
go with the
Wikipedia.
Atlantic. Yeah, Wikipedia. That's probably good.
So it's the largest. Well, I didn't know that. It's the largest crime bill in the history of the United States and consisted of 356 pages that provided for 100,000 new police officers, 9.7 billion in funding for prisons, and 6.1 billion in funding for prevention programs, which were designed with the significant input from experienced police officers.
Drop down to the legacy and impacts part, and I can read that out if you'd like.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the legacy and impacts. The 1994 crime bill marked a shift in the politics of crime and policing in the United States. Sociologist William Kelly states that while the longer-term impact of the Violent Crime Control Law Enforcement Act of 1994 was questionable, the political impact was clear. crime control or tough on crime became a bipartisan issue. I'm going to stop there to give a little bit of context for people that might not be familiar with that sort of time. And it was the year I was born, funnily enough. But right during the mid-'90s, there was a huge wave of crime in the States. And it was from a lot of younger black men from broken homes, basically. We saw a lot of that violence, and thankfully, actually, because of abortions that were made legal about 20 years earlier, the crime sort of just vanished towards the end of the 90s. But at the time when this was all happening, there was a lot of media attention going around, propagated specifically by Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. I'm sure that you can find something that shows this, of calling these young black men super criminals. And basically saying, like,
did they actually use the term super criminal?
Yeah, look up Hillary Clinton super criminal.
Really? That's actually a funny, I mean, racist term. I just anyways.
Super predators. Sorry, my mistake. Super predators, they called them.
Super predators. Still, that's a very.
That's way worse. Like
it's mostly true too. That's on PolitiFact. Yeah. So it's got to be fully true.
Yeah.
If PolitiFact has something with Hillary Clinton that's mostly true, you know that shit's 100% true.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So yeah, she labeled she was the person who started calling these African American kids super predators. And so in the media at the time, there was a lot of talk about super predators and these young black criminals, and they need to be stopped, and we're going to put more policing in, and Joe Biden writes this crime bill, right? But the long-term impacts of this were that people caught with crack got charged with a higher crime than people caught with coke, which was pretty clearly going after the black community rather than the white community for a very similar drug. It enabled profiling, which led to a ton of black people getting arrested. The drug parts of this law, I think, were probably the most sinister for black people. But when it comes down to race and violence, and then the racial problem in America seems to be to do with police unfairly treating them, and Joe Biden wrote the fucking bill that unfairly treated the black people by the police, I don't know where you're going to have anywhere to stand if Trump brings that up. So to me, that's where, like, exactly. So Biden can try and say that Trump did all of this with his divisive rhetoric, but if Trump is prepared, and I hope he is, I hope they're both prepared. If Trump is prepared, then he's going to bring up the crime bill, and he's going to show. I can find this video for you.
It's interesting that you say that point, because Kanye West says that the Democrats are modern-day slave owners, and he talks about how they were the ones that that like to put people in jail and have people. And he says if you're black, because he was the one way back in, I think it was 2016 or 17, he was wearing the MAGA hat and saying, Democrats think that I can't vote for Trump because I'm black, and it's interesting. Anyways,
right. Well, that's the other thing that Trump's going to bring up is the whole if you have to decide between voting for me or Donald Trump, you ain't black, or him saying that unlike the black community, the Latino community is very diverse in their culture and ideas. Like,
imagine if Trump said that, if you don't vote for me, you're not white. Imagine if he said that.
Imagine if anyone said these types of things. Like, that would be like I wouldn't be okay with anyone saying this stuff. I'm going to send you a video real quick. It is a long one, but if this video comes out at any point in the election campaign, Biden's fucked. Like, if Trump really goes hard with this, I don't know how you're planning on fucking. If we can keep. Tell me when you click play, because I'll start watching it at the same time.
I was just gonna say too, it's interesting you said, because I didn't know much about that crime bill. It's interesting you talk about the difference between cocaine and crack being prosecuted differently, because that also the video where remember that video where he said to the reporter, he said something along the lines of, the reporter asked if he should take a cognitive test, and Biden responded with, well, should you take a drug test?
Yeah. Are you a junkie, basically? Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, it almost feels like he associates black people with that. Now, I'm speculating. I don't know if that's the case, but it seems that way to me.
Yeah, I mean, and dementia kind of brings out, not that maybe, look, he
Yeah.
doesn't have dementia, but if he had dementia, it
Doesn't
brings out
he?
some things, you know?
Does he really not have dementia? Like, I feel like at this point, you almost need to show me proof that he doesn't have dementia
I
before
agree.
I would believe it, because, like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's more than enough proof that he has dementia.
Yeah. He grew hair back too somehow. I want to know how he grew back his full head of hair. You
Yeah, I
ever see the
know.
footage?
That's
I'll play-
hilarious.
I'll play this
If we
video.
can put more police officers on the streets, if we can build more courts, have more prosecutors, if we will commit ourselves to be as outraged about crime as the people who are victims are outraged, I believe
The Republican
we're
from
going to begin
Texas
to
is
turn the
endorsing
tide,
this
and
bill
I
as
believe
well,
this
just-
bill is
just
going
to be
an
clear.
important part of it. I yield the floor.
Senator's time has expired. Senator from Delaware.
Madam President, I yield myself 3 minutes. Madam
Yeah, look at
President,
his
it's
hair.
been a real pleasure to work with my friend from Texas. We most times are on opposite sides of issues. This time we're on the same side, but it is. I realize in this business it's difficult for us to, notwithstanding the fact we're personally cooperating on this bill, for us to dismiss the prospect of some partisanship. Let me set the record straight on this bill. The underlying bill, which is now the Biden-Hatch bill, was the Biden bill. A guy named Biden wrote that bill, and he wrote that bill by going down and sitting down with the President of the United States of America, not with his Attorney General, not with anyone else, with Bill Clinton, President of the United States of America, who between the time he got elected in November until the time he was sworn in, called me at my home on 6 separate occasions. And he unfortunately doesn't need a lot of sleep. Sometimes literally, and I say this on the record, as late as 11:30 at night, to discuss why I wasn't moving quicker on the Biden crime bill from before. I sat with him, not with his Attorney General.
So it's not a social
He
issue.
wanted 100,000
Bill Clinton
policemen.
wanted 100,000
He does
police
not view
officers.
this as a social issue as opposed to trying to bring peace and security to the streets. As governor of the state of Arkansas, he presided over, as governor, the execution of individuals within the state and the death penalty. He supports the death penalty. He is the fellow who insisted that I bump this up from initially to when I said, where are we going to get the money? He said, well, all I know is I want 100,000 cops. I made that commitment.
I want
he
100,000
had endorsed the Biden
cops.
crime bill as a candidate when he ran.
So let me just pause for a second here. Joe Biden, the one who implemented 100,000 more cops, is the leader of a party that wants to defund the police.
Yeah,
I actually didn't know about this. This almost seems like a massive just guilty.
Right.
It's almost like they're just guilty. He's like, man, we fucked up so bad. I got to run for president. And we got to defund the police because I added so many of them and fucked it all up and put black people in jail. And now we got to. Wow, that's kind of interesting.
Well, this is the thing, right? It's like if I don't understand, and when we should definitely, but if I don't understand how this hasn't really come out yet, and when you see how aggressive he gets in this fucking video, man, like I just don't understand how. Well, I have a feeling that Trump is waiting to release this, like either right before the debate or something like that. But we'll see, I guess.
Well, I could see he has really good video editors. I could see a montage,
Yeah.
just clips where,
Oh,
and I
they
set this
flipped
up with
it,
100,000 police, and this and that.
You just wait. You just wait. Let's keep watching. Keep watching.
He is the one who talks about the need for stiffer penalties. So notwithstanding the fact some of the old Democrats and former presidents who were Democrats before Carter, I suspect, I don't know who we're talking about here, but in the old days, it is true. When Richard Nixon was running for president, Richard Nixon used to talk about law and order, and the Democratic response was law and order with justice, whatever either one of those meant. I never knew. I was running then in 1972. I didn't think Richard Nixon knew what it meant, and I didn't think the opposition knew what it meant. This president is very, very straightforward and simple. He knows there are 2 basic steps here. One step is you must take back the streets. And you take back the streets by more cops, more prisons, more physical protection for the people. He also understands what my friend from Texas understands, and he doesn't talk a lot about, but he signed on to in this bill. He also understands there's a need to keep people who are first-time offenders, who are nonviolent offenders, or who are potential time offenders who haven't gotten, I yield myself an additional 3 minutes, who in fact are people who are getting themselves into the crime stream for the first time, that they should be diverted from the system. So I hope this crime bill, when it passes, the Biden-Hatch crime bill, as it becomes law, God willing, I hope that we will have ended once and for all this notion that is a hangover from the 60s, that somehow Democrats are weak on crime and Democratic presidents are weak on crime and Republicans are tough on crime. The truth is, every major crime bill since 1976 that's come out of this Congress, every minor crime bill has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden, on that bill. And has had a
Every
majority
single
vote of the
crime bill has
Democratic
had Joe Biden's name on it. Joe
Wow.
Biden loves police. He
Holy
loves
shit.
He hates crime. He
That's
wants more-
crazy. I never knew this. I never knew this. That changes my whole view. Like, beforehand I had a certain view on Biden, now I have an even more extreme view. Like, that's not right. That's not right, that you can't come in and then mess up. You can't, I don't think the system's that messed up, but you can't come in afterwards and be like, oh, wait a second, we gotta defund it all. We gotta,
Yeah,
you know, it's
I
like,
want
I mean,
hundreds of thousands of police. I'm so pro police. I
Yeah.
wrote every bill. I signed every bill. I'm the fucking man when it comes to the cops.
that's,
but then-
that's a game breaker. That is literally, that's the killer right there. I can't believe you sent me
Dude.
this. I didn't know this existed.
I know.
crazy.
We should honestly keep watching because he
Members of
gets
the United
so
States
fucking aggressive
Senate
towards
the
black
bill.
people that, like,
So,
once again, if
one
this
of the
if this
things I
video
wanna
ever
do in
gets
addition-
published,
and-
if it wasn't even published, it's on fucking YouTube. Like, any reporter right now that is how has Black Lives Matter not found this video and burnt Joe Biden's house down yet? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand.
And the crime is then the political carnage that goes on when we talk about
Want to keep it
crime.
going?
Yeah, that's it.
Crime is not Democrat or
There's a delay
Republican.
on the stream a little
Making
bit.
the streets safe is not a Democratic or Republican issue. This is one of those issues I hope this passage of this bill will be taken out of the gridlock category and moved into an emerging consensus. And the consensus is as follows, and I will cease when I finish this statement. The consensus is, A, we must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether
It doesn't matter or not whether they were deprived as a youth. Just gotta throw
or
that.
not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. The Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the Democratic president of the United States of America, the Democratic attorney general, the Republican leader of this effort, Senator Hatch, the Republican senator from Texas. We all agree on that. Now, we can find some fringe folks in the study groups on the right wing and left wing.
We all agree.
libertarians
We all
and-
agree on all those
and,
things I
and-
just
and
said, which is
left-wingers
that
in my
black
party
people are
who
going
say,
to
"No,
beat your
that's not what we should
sister over
do."
the head
But
with a lead pipe, and it doesn't matter if we created them. It doesn't matter if they didn't have the same advantages. It doesn't matter if they didn't get the same life. It doesn't matter. Like, what are you? And who is they? Who is they, by the way?
Who is they?
Who is they? Do you think it's people from Los Angeles?
What was that
Who do
quote
you think
again
he's
that he
talking
did?
about?
White kids do better than school than poor
The
kids
poor,
do, or whatever.
poor kids are just as smart and just as bright as white
That's
kids.
white kids, yeah.
Politically, that
But
consensus
this
has been
is
arrived at. I
like,
acknowledge
no one's
it
seen
was
this.
not
Everyone thinks Joe Biden's a great guy. Great. That's fine. You think he's a great guy. I think he's a piece of shit.
My question
I
is,
think
why
he's
is
personal.
Why did Obama pick him as vice president? No one knows about this.
Because Wall Street told him to.
I guess so, yeah.
Because Obama didn't pick Biden because he likes Biden. Obama didn't even pick his own cabinet because he liked it. The cabinet, I should find it, but his cabinet was specifically chosen by one of the banks. Obama cabinet. Wall Street. Yeah, Citigroup chose Obama's 2008 campaign. WikiLeaks released this back in 2016. So, like, Wall Street literally picked this guy's entire cabinet. I'm sure that that's the same reason why Joe Biden was in there, because Obama needed a Republican-type politician to be his vice president so that he wouldn't seem so unappealing, right? And like that, I think that's the thing, is Joe Biden is, in as far as I can understand it, he's the same as a fucking Republican. And so it's like, once again, that's fine. If people are voting for Joe Biden because they genuinely like Joe Biden's platform, I don't give a fuck. I think that's completely fine. Do what you want. That's your right. If you're voting for him because you think that he's going to help with the police, well, his history has shown that he has been the worst person in the country when it came to the police and the problems that you have today. If you think that he's going to help you with healthcare, he's not. No. If you think that he's going to invest a ton of money into helping the environment, he's not. If you think that he's going to make schooling cheaper, he's not going to do any of these things. And so I don't really understand what makes him any better than Trump. But especially when it comes to like race and violence in the debates, I don't think he has a fucking leg to stand on. And I think if Trump is prepared enough to be able to, if Trump could only repeat back that quote, just say, didn't you say we don't care if they, like if he just went and said it completely verbatim, the entire quote, I think that he would crush Biden in one debate, just with that one point alone.
Yeah.
The last thing that they want to talk about in that debate is the integrity of the election, which I do think is a super interesting point. What do you think about the whole mail-in voting thing?
It's weird. I find it hard to. I don't know. I wasn't sure why Trump was going to say that. I thought mail-in voting was going to be a thing, and I wasn't sure why Trump wanted to make it seem rigged. Now, at this point, I almost see it as Trump getting his supporters out, because I've seen some videos where his supporters don't trust mail-in voting at all, and I think it's to make sure that his supporters go out and vote because they know that they think that the Democrats are going to rig it, or they think it's going to get rigged somehow. But I mean, also, if no one a lot of Democrats now are going to vote in person and early instead of mail-in, and it would be very interesting for Trump to win and be like, look, we had the biggest turnout in Democratic history, and I still won, right?
Well, here's the thing. I think you mentioned an interesting point, which is that he wants all of his voters to get out and vote. But I don't think that he's doing that. So I think that what you're saying is right. I think that he does want them to get out and vote, but I think it's for this reason. So the mail-in votes won't get calculated on the same day as the election.
Right.
And what that means is, let's say that all of the Republicans went and voted for Trump on the day of the election, and then all of the Democrats mailed in their votes and they start getting counted. And let's say the overall vote tally meant that Joe Biden won. Well, what you would see is on election day, Trump would have a massive lead. And then over the next 3 to 5 days or the next week, you would slowly see Joe Biden winning from all these mail-in votes. Obviously, Trump is then going to point to that and go, they're cheating. Right? And so I think that is part of why he's doing that. But I also do think that like in some of the states with the mail-in voting, it doesn't look like a safe election process. Like New Jersey is going to mail out a ballot to everyone in their records. Now, you've worked for a big company that has a lot of people on a list
Yeah.
before. You know that those records are invalid very quickly, let alone
Easily
all of the people
modifiable.
in the state.
Stolen.
Well,
I was talking
yeah,
to
people
my
have
uncle
moved
who-
out, people have died. There's tons of people that have records of living in New Jersey still that don't live there or never lived there even.
Mhm.
And if you're going to mail out a ballot to all of those people, you are asking for some level of fraud to potentially happen. Like if let's say that I was a huge Democrat, right? And a mail-in ballot arrived in my mail for me, and one arrived for you because you also used to live here previously. I'm obviously just going to vote for Joe Biden on both the ballots and send them in.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And that was where Trump got in, like, or people were sort of having a go at Trump because he basically told his voters, he told his supporters, like, vote in public, vote in person, and then also do a mail-in vote if they're saying that their thing is so, if they're saying that their process is so secure and no fraud can happen, well, let's test it, basically. And people got a bit upset because he was sort of encouraging voter fraud, but
I don't know. It's that one's a weird one. Yeah. I don't really have a solid stance on that because it's like I don't think that I think it's kind of messy how Trump handled it, but at the same time it is not like it is not the best way to vote right now. We don't have a solid mail-in voting process at all. Or sorry, not we. I'm a Canadian, by the way, but
yeah.
America does not have a solid voting process at all. And yeah, like you said, if people, I get mail from random people all the time at my old
All
house,
the time.
all
Yeah.
the time. And yeah, if I was a Democrat, if I was a you know, low key, if I knew that everyone was gonna mail in vote and I received those, what is gonna stop me from, like you said, doing that? And I might do that. I might just write Republican on all of it, right? And
Right.
because you know the Democrats are gonna do the same. They at this point they're saying vote for Biden because no matter what, because Trump is ugly. So if they get multiple of
Right.
those,
Yeah, exactly.
they're
Yeah.
filling them all out.
I'm hearing people say they want to put a bullet in Trump's head. You think that they're like what? That their integrity is so high that
Something
they're not
racist.
going to fraudulently vote? Like what? What are we talking about here? But I do think that you're right that Trump handled it, you know, and has made this into a huge deal and has made this into a divisive thing like he always does. And I'm not a fan of any of that. But I also think it's hilarious that the Dems were basically saying, no, there's no fraud. There's no fraud. It's completely secure. And then when Trump challenged his voters or his supporters to go and fraudulently vote, they basically said he's asking them to commit fraud. But you're saying that he can't. You're saying that it's not possible. You can't have it both. Like you can't have it both ways. And it seems to be something where, like, I don't know if he's doing it just to be divisive. I don't know if he's doing it just to trap the left in their stupid fucking comments they make. Because everyone should be able to agree that mail-in voting is not secure, not as secure as in-person voting.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
And
but
again, that point you said we've talked about before, and I missed that. But that is also proving that the Democrats or changing the Democrats' minds into them not trusting the voting process.
yeah.
Is kind of genius in and of
Yeah.
itself.
And all he had to do was call their bluff, basically, and say, oh, okay, you think it's secure? Let's see if my base goes and does it, if it'll be very secure.
Yeah, that's
Which-
that's I forgot about
Which,
that.
when you're telling him that he's making this into a bigger deal than it is, and you're constantly making him out to be this guy, like, I mean, it's just the play that I would expect people to make. It's the play that I would expect a lot of people to make in that situation. And it's not like he doesn't have really good political strategists helping him.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. September 29th is gonna be amazing. I think that's
Yeah,
gonna be
we
a fun
should-
night.
We should do like
We should do
a
a commentary, yeah.
post-stream. Yeah, exactly. I agree. He's gonna get fucking crushed though. Like even if I look at these things, man, like he might have some good points on COVID, maybe, he might catch Trump a little bit in the COVID part. He might catch him in the Trump and Biden records, like if he brings up the whole Muslim ban and things like that. And there's things that he'll definitely have there, but I don't know if Biden's equipped to even make it to the stage.
Who knows? I was wondering about that. I was thinking, what if they cancel it? What if Biden says I can't show up? Then what do you do? Then that's a lose.
Yeah.
We haven't heard much about
He
the-
loses, right? He loses at that point, doesn't he?
He should.
Like really?
He should.
If he doesn't turn up, do you think that any American voters are going to vote for him?
I think so. I think
If
a
he-
fair
if he
amount
just-
still will, yeah.
Yeah, I
They
know.
shouldn't, but I think a fair amount still will.
AOC will still vote for him.
Oh, 100%.
Joe Biden could go and kill 100 children, and AOC would still vote for him.
Joe Biden could shit himself on stage and they'd vote for him.
Joe
They'd probably be
Biden.
like, that was the best thing we've ever seen. That was
Joe
awesome.
Biden could stick some of his fingers up his secretary's pussy while she's fucking not wanting him to, and AOC would still vote for him
Yeah.
because he did, and she will.
He did that?
Yeah,
that-
the Tara Reid allegation. Did you
I
not
didn't
see
read
any of
about
that?
No.
Dude, oh my god, yeah,
I'll
back
read
in
about that
back in
afterwards.
dude, back in March he got accused of basically like digitally raping this girl when she used to work for him like 20 years ago or whatever. There is corroboration. Her mum called Larry King live, like her
Jeez.
neighbor and her husband said that she told them at the time that it happened. Her husband in the divorce proceedings said that it was a big reason as to why they actually got divorced, because it had long-lasting issues on her. And the left basically just painted her out to be this Russian asset and just didn't talk about it at all. Fuck, believe all women unless they are accusing a Democrat.
Yeah. Believe all Democrat women, you know? And
Yeah, exactly.
we should end it on the that last tweet, or there's one tweet you sent me, which is very similar to what we just said, which is pulling up right now. It's sexist. So a sexist, they'll say women be like ... and then a progressive, they'll be
Yeah.
like white women be like, you know, or
Yeah.
Democrat women be like, right? Like,
Well, that's that whole intersectionality thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
you can't talk about one specific race in any sort of way, but you can always talk about it if it's a group that was oppressed, and if you can fit yourself into as many disadvantaged or oppressed categories as humanly possible, you just get more and more woke points. And I think that that's just a really shitty way to look at life. I think we're so much more than this. I think that we're just so much more than the color of our skin, so much more than what's in our pants. And I really think that we should be looking at each other as individuals. There's one tweet that I'll get you to bring up. It's was it the one that I sent you at the end? Yeah, go to the one that bring up the one that I sent you, like the last message I sent you, basically. Yeah, this guy's so angry.
on Messenger.
On Twitter, this guy, like, so if you bring up the last one that I sent you, you should read this thread basically, but
I don't have it on Messenger. Is it on WhatsApp? Oh,
sorry,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
on WhatsApp. Yeah.
got it. Love when you money grubbing cracker libertarian adolescents. Wait, so this is more
But
than
go
just,
up in the thread a bit.
So it starts with Jeremy Willis. Is that it?
Yeah. So Jeremy Willis is actually responding to a point that was basically saying something along the lines of, if everyone is an individual, then racism is bad, right? Because racism is basically saying that outside of your individuality, you are responsible for things because of the color of your skin, and that you should be treated differently because of the color of your skin, right? That's why we look at it as bad, because it goes against our common understanding of everyone being an individual. So if we then stop looking at each other as individuals, if we go with all of this social justice BLM stuff that's been happening, well, what we're basically saying is that you're not an individual and you are responsible for everything in your group, right? You're responsible for white people. I'm responsible for mixed race people. We're both responsible for the actions of men, right? At which point racism isn't evil anymore, because you're just playing the game. Like you're just operating within the rules of that category-based model, right? Rather than an individual-based model. And so Jeremy Willis goes, yeah, racism is only evil in a moral framework that acknowledges individualism. This Lenny Liebman guy goes, da fuck. Another guy tries to explain it to him and goes, I think he's saying that if you treat people as individuals, then you understand why stereotyping based on race is bad. But if you see race as an important characteristic, then how can judging people by race be evil, or something like that, right? That's what he's trying to say. Mm-hmm. And then the guy goes, nah, why are you caping? I think he's basically just trolling, but then he goes, I just think that's what he's saying, but I might be wrong. How do you interpret it? The OP basically goes, this isn't meant to be super philosophically rigorous. The point is there's no moral law saying racism is wrong. We accept that it is because it denies individual autonomy and their ability to seek and maximize their life pursuits, right? Which I agree with. Lenny then responds and goes, individualism, in quotes, is doing a lot of work here. One could just as easily decry racism on deontological grounds, i.e. without any consequentialist assertions regarding how it might impact any given individual, or because of how it denies the civitas full benefit of its citizens.
Oh
I don't know what any of that means.
I know. That's the thing with liberals. They overcomplicate the fuck out of their,
like,
out
I
of
don't know
their
what that
wording.
means,
you don't have to do that. You never overcomplicating speech is not a good thing. It doesn't.
Right.
Certain words should be used in certain. Certain words should be used to ease the conversation, right? Adding in consequentialist assertions regarding how it might. That's like
deontological. I don't know what those words mean, and I'm not going to go and get a dictionary out just to be able to have a conversation with you about something where I was able to understand everyone else. So I say to him, like, what does that even mean? I'm genuinely asking. He goes, are you familiar with the difference between deontological and consequentialist ethics? I say, not at all. Can you help a layman out? And he just goes, no.
He's like,
no, I'm not going to help you. And I'm like, okay, so you're not trying to actually discuss this, just looking to drag everyone off course with super complicated language because you couldn't understand OP's fairly logical assessment? And then he goes, love when money-grubbing cracker libertarian adolescents demand free labor from others. Use Google. Read a book. Stop listening to Shapiro or Harris or any of the other idiots who simply affirm your innate money-grabbing cracker libertarian adolescent nature. Which is hilarious because I didn't realize I was a cracker until
I know. Exactly.
I didn't even think of my profile picture. Like, do I look white? I guess I do look pretty white.
Well, if you were black, would he have told you? Would he have explained it?
Well, maybe, but he might not have called me a cracker. Like, you know what a cracker means?
Yeah, cracker's a racist term for a white person.
But do you know why it's racist?
I actually don't know.
So a cracker is the term used for white people because the whip makes a cracking sound, and the slave masters with their fucking whips. So it's actually really, like, it's a really nasty fucking term to use. Basically, calling someone like a slave owner, and not all white people are slave owners, and
not many. To be honest, 99.5 or 6 or 99.9% of all white people that have lived over the past 100 years have never been slave owners,
Yeah, I know. But that's the thing. And I don't, like, but on top of that, I'm just not white. Like, I don't understand. Like, he can see my profile picture there. Like, at the very least, I look like a very, very tanned white person. Like, and so I basically said to him, wow, you're really angry. Is everything okay? And then he goes, 200,000 dead, but don't let it bother you, kid. So it always comes back to Trump. We can't just have a conversation about racism and the actual fucking importance of it. He just resorts to getting really fucking angry and then blaming Trump.
Yep.
Because Trump is responsible for bad actions in this world,
and then
right?
referencing in the middle of it all references very obscure philosophical topics that he expects you to already have read, because every single philosophical topic out there is it explains everything. It has to be right if it's philosophical, right? So I mean, you know.
And also, like, you're talking to some guy on Twitter. Like, why would you expect me to... Like, do I look white? I guess I do look white. I look pretty white. I look like I have money. That must be
Yeah,
white, right?
Royce Butler. Yeah,
Oh, do you want to
true.
play that video? Play that video that's at the top, because I think that's actually a really important video. Just that's pinned on my Twitter there, or not pinned, but my most recent tweet.
Oh, this one here. Yeah.
I think, this would be a really good way
we've
for us
been
to cap
fighting
off the
right now in this time in our country.
stream.
We're doing this whole Black Lives Matter. Everyone's fighting, everyone's looting. This is my father. I was born in foster care. I didn't have a mother or a father. They gave me away. My father wasn't fit to be my father. This is my dad here, Jacob Benny. He's been there since the beginning. He's done everything. He laid his life down for me, and I lay his life down for him. I don't judge any man on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. We're here. We love. It doesn't matter what color it is. It's all about love. You can't beat hate with hate. You beat hate with love. So everyone out there, please stop fighting. Please come together. We can't beat it that way. With love. Dad, come here. Come here.
Yeah, that's a powerful video. When you showed me that, that was like, that's one of my favorite videos, 100%.
I just think, I would love to see us all looking at each other like this.
Yeah.
I know that we make jokes this thing, and we can be a bit offensive and sometimes, but like, in reality, I just want us all to get along.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at you, my friend Mitch, as some white guy. I want to be able to look at you as Mitch. And I don't want you to look at me as a mixed race person. I just want you to look at me as Royce. And I want us to be able to connect on an individual level. And I want that to be the same no matter who I talk to. You know, I always thought that what we were trying to achieve in our world at this point was to not be looking at race, not be looking at gender, but to just be treating each other equally no matter what you look like.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're now starting to push towards a society where we want everyone to look at each other based on what's in their pants, what color they are, how old they are, how tall they are, how good looking they are, how smart they are, the advantages they had in life, what class they are, what country they're from. None of that shit matters. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway. But
I
yeah,
100% agree. I think that 100%
Wanna wrap it up?
agree. Yeah. I don't have anything to add on to that because I 100% agree and it was well put. And yeah, that's
yeah,
it.
exactly. I don't think that we shouldn't. There's nothing like go on that, because we should just be treating each other we should all just be treating each other like people and getting to know them and not making judgments based on the color of people's skin.
Yeah.
When you start judging people based on what they look like before you actually get to know them, you are no better than a racist.
Yep. And actually, I do have something to add on to that, is that there was I forget the philosopher's name. I will bring the philosophy into this, but he did say that, you know, if you're looking for love, that like if you love everybody regardless of what love you receive, then you know you're spreading that love and you're more likely to then receive the love that you want. Whereas if you're looking for love first and not giving any love, you're less likely to receive that love, which is they're basing it off of if everyone chooses to love everybody, then everyone else will also receive love. If you're looking to get love from everybody but not giving it out, then if everyone else is thinking like that, no one's giving love. You know what I mean? So it's like it all comes down to, like Kanye West says, it all comes down to like love. That's it.
100%. And there's tons of ways that gets looked at, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated. You give what you get. You reap what you sow. All of these things always come back to if you want to be treated well. And if you don't want people to be racist or sexist, don't be racist or sexist yourself. Don't prejudge people because they're white. Don't prejudge people because they're men, right? Men and white people do have something to offer the world. They're not all terrible people. They're not even mostly terrible people. The far, far majority of white people that I've met have been really lovely people.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's dangerous creating a narrative where we're looking at white people and white men specifically as less than.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Anyway.
Don't prejudge.
Let's finish this up.